Hello and welcome to the Princeton Spine and Joint Center podcast. My name is Zinovy Meyler and I'm the co-director of the interventional spine program here at the Princeton Spine and Joint Center. We just finished recording our podcast with Dave DiSanto of the Yoga and Movement Training Center. And he is many things, and he's a yoga instructor. He's a movement teacher. He is an Ironman. He is a triple crown hiker. There are a lot of things, and all around impressive human being. But the key to this intro is, why should you care? Why should you want to listen to this discussion on movement culture and what is this movement culture? That is the topic of our conversation. And the reason that we had Dave on is because movement culture is this difficult concept to grasp because it is something very specific and it's something that is all-encompassing. The reason that Princeton Spine and Joint Center brings Dave or someone like Dave in is because of how it permeates what we do. Musculoskeletal care, pain is all-encompassing, and there are ways that we can prevent this pain. And part of it comes from our ability to adapt, our ability to strengthen, our ability to move in daily life, some of the things that we lose on a daily basis. And so in this discussion, we went into a couple of different tangents and encompassed a number of different aspects of the movement culture and the attributes that it brings. Neuroplasticity, or in other words, how do we learn and how does our nervous system adapt, and how movement and ability to move and the practice of movement can aid someone in learning, how it can stave off some neurodegenerative disease, how it can prevent some spinal injuries and joint injuries, how it can make someone engage in life with the space and prevent injuries, and also become more functional physically and potentially even mentally, if you will. So this is a kind of a wide-ranging conversation, and it should interest everyone because we all own these bodies and we all move, and we all should be able to move better and in a way become better movers, which is going to be the topic of this conversation. So I hope you enjoy this wide-ranging discussion about the movement culture. Hello and welcome to Princeton Spine and Joint Center podcast. My name is Zinovy Meyler and I'm the co-director of the interventional spine program here at Princeton Spine and Joint Center. And today joining me is Dave DiSanto. He's a yoga instructor. He is an Ironman, a personal trainer, a movement teacher, triple crown hiking, and now a small business owner. Today we'll be discussing movement culture and how it pertains to musculoskeletal care and preventing problems with our musculoskeletal system. But I have a feeling that there'll be more to discuss in there. So, Dave, welcome.
Thank you so much. And I really just want to say thank you, too, just for having me. Obviously, this is a topic that I love to talk about. Right. So I just appreciate it, the opportunity. So thank you guys so much. Yeah.
Awesome. By all means. I think this is going to be a good discussion.
Great.
All right. So before we get into, let's just start with, what is this? What is movement culture?
Right. Yeah. So it's interesting, right? So movement, it's really just a word, right? But we try to put like the capital M on the word movement, right? So what is the movement culture? It's a great question. A lot of people, just aren't familiar yet quite like with what this is all about. So introducing it to kind of people is great. And I think this format gives us the time to do that. The movement culture is kind of, I would say, a paradigm shift. So it's kind of a shift in looking at the way that we move through life with this physical body, the physicality that we move through just in our daily lives, and taking it into some of the different disciplines, such as maybe like dance or yoga and things like that. But understanding first, we're just human beings with bodies. And I think it's just like this, again, just like this paradigm shift of like how we view life and how we move with our body throughout. And understanding that it's 24/7, right? We have this when we wake up in the morning, go to bed at night. But we think sometimes that it's like it's only the when I'm doing the discipline. It's like I go to the gym, that's when I'm the mover.
Right.
No, it's all the time, 24/7. So it's this. It's just kind of more the concept of how we view the body and how.
So when you say
use
so when you say paradigm shift, you're talking about both the movement itself as well as the thinking of it.
100%. Yeah, I've always said to my students that the change has to first occur here before it starts to actually like permeate our physical like movements and body. So yeah, first maybe here, looking at things differently, and then moving differently as a result of the way that we think. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, it involves thinking, it involves movement. We'll dive deeper into the concept itself, but before we get into it, since it has this thinking part about it, how did you get into movement culture? I mean, it seems like you've achieved a number of different things and different milestones that a lot of people are looking at significant milestones physically. So how did you get into movement culture, and what's your background? Just give us a sense.
Yeah, so great question. And I would say as a young, just individual, I was always I just liked pushing, I don't know why, the physical limits. I wanted to see what the human body is capable of. And I just always loved, at a young age, it was just the typical sports, right, that you get into. As I got a little older, I started to kind of get into some triathlons, and then I found yoga. And I was always just interested in exploring the different facets and different like avenues that are all encompassing. But this was years before I even knew or anything about this idea of movement or anything. I just like so many different things. So I got into triathlons at a young age. Started doing those. When I completed my first Ironman in 2008, that was a big change I feel like occurred in me when that happened.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. So not everyone knows Ironman. So tell us what's involved in Ironman.
So an Ironman is a long distance triathlon. So it starts with a 2.4 mile swim, followed by a 112 mile bike, followed by a 26.2 mile run.
Which is a marathon.
Yeah, which is a marathon.
Right, so you do a marathon after you've done swimming, after you've done a 112-mile bike ride.
Pretty ridiculous, cool. I would agree.
Okay,
yes,
interesting.
Yes. But I remember when I would do sprint triathlons, right? So that's when I first kind of had started and gotten into it. And in the sprints, you're doing, it's like a quarter-mile swim, I think maybe a 12-mile bike, followed by like a 5K.
Right.
And I remember saying to myself, okay, the sprint is pretty challenging stuff. Maybe I can train for an Olympic distance. An Olympic distance is twice a sprint.
Right.
Then you start to get into the Olympic. Then you start to think about, a half of an Ironman. Right. And I remember saying to myself, it will be impossible for me to complete an Ironman. I remember saying that, believing it, and feeling it. I just said, yeah, I know some people can do it, but not me. That's just too much. But little by little, when I did the half, it's just like you're pushing the boundaries a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah, and then in 2008, I ended up doing the Lake Placid Ironman.
And once again, there's that mental aspect of physicality and physical movement. There's a mental aspect of that coming in there as well.
Yeah.
And then there's another thing that I kind of zoomed by in introduction, triple crown.
The Triple Crown of hiking, yeah. So, and it was funny because that Ironman, after completing that's when I kind of said to myself, wow, you thought this was impossible for yourself. You said that, you believed it, and you overcame that. Anything's possible, right? And then, so boom, done. Yeah. After that happened, I hiked the Appalachian Trail. That was the first. So the Triple Crown, for people that don't know, not many people are familiar with this.
Right.
If you were to Google just like long distance hiking trails in the United States, you probably come across 20 or 30. All over the United States, long distance trails. So we're talking hundreds of miles. 3 of those trails make up what's called the Triple Crown. So it's the Appalachian Trail, the Continental Divide Trail, and the Pacific Crest Trail. So if you complete those 3 trails, then you're considered what's called the Triple Crowner. So in 2009, it was again just after I had completed the Ironman, I kind of had this new revelation, new idea of it just was kind of typical job, and just I found myself getting into a groove and a rhythm that I didn't really want to see myself in too far down the road. So I said, let's take this opportunity to travel and to do some things. So I completed the Appalachian Trail first, and I'll be honest, when I got to the end, I said, I'm kind of hooked. I said, this is something that I just can't shake off. This is a part of me now. This idea of hiking, and it's so complex. There's a lot going on there. But so I completed the Appalachian Trail in 2009. The next year, I went out and I did 700 miles of the Pacific Crest Trail. And then I hiked another trail the following year that not many people knew about. It's called the Grand Enchantment Trail. So I think I was about the 15th person to hike that trail.
Oh.
That was quite the experience. And then I went back, I finished the entire Pacific Crest Trail. So now I had 2 of the 3 trails done. And then in 2016, I decided it's time, let's do this Continental Divide Trail. And the time of my life, it was a beautiful thing. Yeah, so became a triple crowner. I think there's 200 and so people that are like in that category of being
cool.
triple crowners. So, yeah.
Okay, where does the movement come in? Like at which point?
Right.
When do you get hooked on that?
Right. So I became a personal trainer at some point before, I think it was around 2013, because I was a trainer for about 2 or 3 years. And then after those years, that's when I decided I wanted to hike the CDT. But as I became a personal trainer, I started to, you know what, when I became, it was functional movement. That was like the term that was out there. And we were kind of being taught, not just like the strength training approach and everything, but it's this idea of like trying to get people their imbalances worked on. And that was kind of the approach. And I bought into it. I liked it, but it was not enough. There was something more that I just knew was out there. And I was just getting so kind of just tired of the same approach, you know, the gym equipment, the bench press, the this, the that. It's all the different same movements that we do over and over again. So the girlfriend I was dating at the time, she said, hey, there's this guy online, IDO Portal. She goes, I think you would be interested in what he's talking about. No idea who he was. I watched a YouTube video. It was, I think, probably a podcast or just maybe an interview. It was about an hour and a half long of Ido talking. And I said, this guy is talking different than anybody else I've ever heard before. I just listened to an hour and a half conversation with this guy, and never once did he mention a rep or a set or anything. He talked about movement from a very different approach, but it made sense to me. It just clicked, and it was at times complex, but also, if you took away a lot of the things, it was very simple of what he was saying. He was saying just like, let's go back to the basics first, and it just the way that he talked, the words he used, it just clicked in me. Boom, done. Right. So 5 years later, flashback, here we are. Obsessed. I would say you could put me in the category of obsessed with movement at this point, and the fire has not really dimmed. It just continues to grow. So it's been about 5 years that I've been on this journey, of movement. So,
all right. Well, that brings us to present day.
Yeah.
And so let's get back to the question of what is it? Can movement culture be defined? Is there, for instance, there's strength training, and when you say that, you can sort of define that. There's gymnastics, you can sort of define that. What is it? And you can have a clear understanding and clear picture of it.
For sure.
So what is movement culture? Because you're not even talking about training, you're talking about culture, right?
Yes.
So what is that? How would you describe it to someone who has never seen it, who's never heard about it? And of course, the follow-up question is going to be why would they be interested? Why should they be interested in it?
The $1 million question. So I get this all the time.
Right.
And it's trying to answer this question within a few minutes, which is so hard when I'm in passing with somebody randomly. I'll get the question at the gym, what are you doing? That's different. I don't understand. So it's hard in a quick conversation, which is why I love this format. It gives you some more time. So you mentioned in your description, right? I think it was strength training you mentioned and gymnastics, right? So what you mentioned were 2 individual disciplines. So let's take it even farther and say we have a gymnast at one table, a strength trainer, or maybe an Olympic lifter at another table. Maybe we have a dancer and a fighter, all sitting at different tables because they think what they do is all different. They think they're practicing individual disciplines, which they are. But what if the movement perspective says, what if we can find the common thread amongst all of those individual disciplines? The one thread they all have in common, they're all moving. They're all movers. So we want to take from all of them. We don't want to become just the best arm balancer, the best fighter, the best yogi. We're interested in a generalist approach over a specialized single discipline approach, where we're saying, what if we could create one body that's adaptable and is pretty good at everything? So I've never been to a dance class before, but you throw me into a dance class. I've been practicing movement for 5 years. Hopefully, I pick it up pretty quickly, much quicker than I was if I didn't have this movement background, this movement perspective. Put me in a fighting class. Maybe I'll pick it up pretty quick. I'm not going to be the best fighter, but I'm going to be pretty good because of this approach of, again, this generalized approach. Now, human beings, we like to specialize. So we try to become the best at one individual thing. There's nothing wrong with that. We need that in life, but it's again a different perspective, a different approach. What if we take a little bit of all the different aspects and we try to train the human body more of like that? And even that there, I use the word train. Not necessarily. Really, is more of a practice. It's more of like a practice and a daily approach.
Okay.
Yeah.
And a practice and a daily approach. So, I mean, there are different ways to look at it from different perspectives, right?
Yeah.
So, on one hand, you're talking about tracing back in a similar fashion as you can say science, right? So there is biology, there is chemistry, there is medicine, and there are subsets of science, and of course medicine is accumulation of biochemistry and molecular biology and so on and so forth. Right. And if you trace it back to origins that you could say that they all originate from philosophy, right?
Yeah.
And what is philosophy? Philosophy is really love for knowledge and love for studying knowledge. So looking at that would be similar, that you're not specializing, you are engaging in the overarching aspect of something that permeates all of them, right?
Nicely put, yes.
And then another aspect of this is that, as you say, when it's practice, right? So practice, and I think we'll get into it a little bit later, but I keep thinking back to the idea of kids and children, and I know that you bring this up a lot during training. Yeah. The idea of kids playing and exploring and learning through the play, but also learning and being able to create new connections and being able to explore their environment, right?
For sure.
So that's the practice part of it. That's why you stay away from the word training. Because of that. So, okay, so you had mentioned something, and you say we don't want to be that, but we want to learn something. We want to take something from all of these disciplines.
Yeah.
So the big question is why? Like why should we care? Why should we want to take the attributes of different ones? Like
Right.
Why should that matter to us in daily life? I mean, and I'm saying this from a perspective. Say I'm an accountant, or I'm a dentist. I have other concerns and I have other things, and I'm fine with the way I move through my space, through my environment. So why should I care? Why should I care about borrowing from those disciplines?
Yeah. So whatever we specialize in life, we at some point will pay the price. I find it interesting you mentioned the dentist, right? So I have worked with a few dentists, actually. And then we start to see the different tight here, low back issues, hunched over, hands, fingers, wrists, all these different things that kind of have a result of specializing in life. It's the price that we pay. The accountant, to be the best, you're going to have probably to wear glasses at some point. Okay. The eye strain, the looking at small numbers, the looking at computer screens, everything I feel like in life has some type of a price to pay if we do specialize. So maybe the dentist could benefit from something that is found in swimming, perhaps. Maybe if it's the way that we look at how the swimmer moves their spine through the water, right? Maybe the dentist can benefit from being hunched over all day because they've learned from a different discipline altogether, perhaps. So there's things that can benefit us we're just not aware of. Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like this is a discussion. Obviously, I'm asking the question, which I end up talking to my patients a lot about these things, and some of the common things is, let's say, running, right? Running is a very common sport, but it also is it's a part of a lot of different sports. Boxers run; they call it road work. Right. Other people run for different reasons, but there are people that just run because this is a form of exercise, and indeed, it is a great form of cardiovascular exercise, and for a lot of people, it's a form of meditation. Right? Some people, when they stay away from running, it is a psychological strain on them, and they need it.
Yeah,
that's great, but a lot of the times, it's a linear, to your point, it's a linear exercise. You are moving front to back, your legs are going front to back, and what a lot of times is missing is the lateral motion. So in other words, the muscles that are responsible for separating the legs, bringing the hips out, and then bringing the legs back in. We simply don't do that when we run. It's a linear motion. So a lot of that weakness will then translate into hip instability or potentially pelvic instability, which then of course translates into instability or poor support for the back, and that causes more pain, and that causes more compensatory mechanisms that are not necessarily physiologic. Right, and I think that's why it is so important for most people to realize that when they specialize, they preferentially build up certain techniques and certain planes of motion that they get really good at, which they need for their specialty.
Sure.
Whatever that specialty is, when we're talking about runners, they get really good at running. And if it's a dentist who runs, that's great. That they can do dentistry and they can run well. But they're missing a lot of these things, and reason that they should care is because they're going to pay for it, and we all do. We end up paying for it. We don't run on uneven surfaces. We don't walk where we have to. We are blessed and cursed with paved roads because we can walk straight.
Sure.
But that takes us away from having to jump from stone to stone, from having to go lateral movement, and use the muscles that we're given,
100%,
and they serve more than one purpose.
For sure,
right? And that was one of the main things, and
even within there, so like mentioning running, right, in particular, but any single discipline is limited, right? So there's no one single discipline where we're going to get all yoga, zero pulling. I've done yoga for 13 years. I've never once pulled anything while in a yoga class. Pulling, right. It's limited. Every discipline, in some way, shape, or form, it doesn't have all of those things, right? So that's one thing to think about. And I think another thing is getting so good at one particular range of motion. So hiking, I did tons of 10,000 miles almost of hiking.
Right.
The knee bends a little bit while hiking, a little bit. It doesn't bend fully ever all day long. When I got finished hiking the Appalachian Trail, I could not bend down to pick up things. It was incredibly painful. I remember the pressure on my knees was so intense. I was like a senior citizen already, or much later in life at a very young age. Right. So the basic, for instance, what helped me a lot, the basic human squat position. Mm-hmm. A resting, heels flat to the floor squat position helped my knees recover from all of those miles of hiking, right? But in those disciplines, the hiking, the running, the joints don't fold completely. Mm-hmm. So that's just one simple example, of how if I can just go back to the toddler. When I was a baby, I could squat. I somehow did something to my body when I got through the Appalachian Trail. I could no longer get into that same position. So there's something wrong with me specializing in that if I can't get back to the human foundation and position. So learning this is like my later on hikes. I learned that I need to keep squatting after these 20, 30-mile days of hiking. And it hurts. It hurts the knees initially, but we have to keep them going, keep them bending, So if I say a power lifter, you get a picture of a person. Right? For sure.
If I say a yogi, you kind of get a picture of a person. If I say a bodybuilder,
for sure,
right? And going through these examples, right? I mean, you know where I'm going with this. If I say a mover, right? I mean, that's what commonly you refer to someone in the movement culture as a mover, right? So what does that person look like?
Great question. They can look like anything, all demographics, until the day you die. The day before, you can move. You can keep moving. You can learn something new all the time, and from a very, very young age too. So from a demographic standpoint, or even from a, what does the person look like? Anything across the board. I would say more so. What type of person? How do they move through life? How do they view problems? I find in the movement culture, you're going to find disciplined individuals. It's no time for laziness. You're not going to find a lazy person at a movement class that sticks with it for long enough. Somebody that cares about their body too, about living in this vessel, I feel like too many times we get so separated that we kind of just lose this idea of how important this is. We only get one chance, and we only have one of these. So I think it's more not of physically outlooking, like you mentioned, the bodybuilder, right? We have this image, the yogi, we have maybe this image, but it's more of how does this person go about work? It's kind of this idea of like having a craftsman mentality. It's like, how do you go about your work? Do you pay attention to detail, or are you comfortable with cutting corners here and there? The movement culture, the people that it attracts are detail-oriented, disciplined, not afraid to fail. A lot of people, one class, if it's a lot of failing involved, they don't want any other part of it. So looking at the person, not maybe the best approach, to kind of see like the qualities that this person does tasks with, that's maybe a little bit more of what it looks, what the movement culture attracts, the type of people that kind of lends
Do you find, okay, so innately, there are two things that the person must have, right? First, they have to have interest in this. And so obviously they have to have some qualities that bring them to movement culture.
Yeah.
Do you find that people that are in movement culture, do you feel that they develop more of those same qualities of sort of detail-oriented and task
as time goes, you're saying?
Yes, with the practice of movement, and I almost said training, but I avoided it. So with the practice of movement, do you find that those attributes are actually enhanced?
Yeah, over time. So people will go in two directions right off the bat, right? They're either going to stick with it or they're going to move. They're going to go somewhere else and maybe go to like another approach, another thing. I feel like the people that stay with it long enough, you have no choice really to be detail-oriented, to be focused individuals. To answer your question, yes, though. I feel like I am way more focused now, way more, willing to dive deeper now than I was 5 years ago. It's just, again, maybe this leads us even almost into like the fitness approach. It's just different. It's not, pushing, just limiting it to like pushing weights around and just getting set on the machine. We have to be mentally involved and active in it. So it's almost like you're forced to be, a more disciplined individual.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, since this brings us to that concept, so how is this different, right? I mean, there's the fitness culture, right, and there's the movement culture.
Yeah.
So and it seems that naturally the way we think about things and approach these things will dictate how we do them, right? So obviously there is going to be a paradigm, there is going to be a mental aspect to this. So what is your take on this? How is the fitness culture different from the movement culture?
Yeah, and I was a part of it for years. I mean, I remember starting at the age of maybe 14 or 15 years old, starting to strength train, and I was probably in a gym by 17, and then it was just years of being in a gym. And I even saw it from the personal trainer perspective as well, as I became a trainer before I understood the movement culture and the movement perspective. So the differences are vast, first of all. If you walk into a movement facility versus, a big gym, gyms will see equipment, right? So in essence, when we put ourselves on a machine, it's almost like we're asking our body to conform to the machine, to the shapes. And machines move in one, they're making some other, equipment nowadays, but it's a lot of high-tech gadgets, a lot of, high tech. It's technology, right? It's a lot sometimes. In the movement culture, we play with tennis balls, strings, a stick, our own body, a wall. This is all we need, right? So it's very simple and basic approach. You take your shoes off in a gym, how long before somebody asks you to put your shoes back on? Because it's dangerous to drop something on your foot.
Sure,
now, I get that. I've been working out for like 25 years, right? I've never once dropped a weight on my foot. Right. And I think maybe living my life in that shoe perhaps might give me some other issues rather than perhaps dropping the weight on the foot, right? So we start to just see these different things. Barefoot training were not allowed in gyms. I as a trainer, I got in trouble they would tell me, have your clients put their shoes back on. So some differences there. Again, I feel like it's just very linear. You go to a gym, you're going to strength train, maybe you do some stretching. What else? Where are we working on the coordination, the balance, reaction times? I go to a gym and there's yoga class, Zumba class, cardio kickboxing class. Where's the joint class? The class that focuses on all the joints of the body, keeping them healthy, folding them, extending them fully. Where's the spine class, right? People hurt their spines, the low back, all these different issues. Where's the class that we're moving our spine? So I feel like the fitness industry, I hate to say this, but it's borderline. It almost promotes the aesthetics of how it looks. But it's not going to get you far, that approach. I used to lift weights for aesthetics. I feel like a lot of people have and do.
Sure.
I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not saying like you're wrong doing that. But there's so much more. And I'm just saying, give it a chance. So we think more about the movements of the body rather than just how much weight can I push. Someday the bench press, how much you just keep pushing. Yeah, but we get elbow issues, we get all these different issues, and again, it conforms us to staying in these exact positions. What about moving organically? If you watch a child or a dog or an animal play, there's no 5 reps on left, 5 sets on right. It's random. We move fluidly. Yeah, the child plays. When do we play in the gym? You know, so I think if people stay with this perspective long enough and they are maybe under a teacher that's teaching movement, I feel like you start to see little by little the differences. And they're vast. I've been probably just a few. There's more. But the more you dive into the movement perspective, the more you see the differences when you walk into a regular gym. And I am still a member of a gym, so I go and do my thing on the side, and then I get the weirdo, right? He's the weirdo. And it's welcomed. It's fine. I'd rather maybe be the weirdo or the oddball out, working on his hands, doing something else over here. But yeah, so it's...
So you mentioned play, and you've mentioned play a couple of times.
Yeah.
And I think that is somewhat underappreciated or underestimated, the value of it.
For sure.
And I'd like to bring up a couple of things of why play is important.
Yeah.
But in your estimation or in your perspective, why is play important?
Yeah. A few things. Learning, one. So, and I'll jump back, but kind of connect this too. Yeah. So, IDO Portal, right, the movement guy, he has this idea and this concept of 3 zones: Zone 1, Zone 2, and Zone 3. Right. The majority of the fitness industry, we spend our time in Zone 3. So, Zone 1 is, I've shown you something for the first time ever. You've never done it before. It's a task. You're not good at it. You fail most of the time. Zone 1. Zone 2 means you've done this task before. You have some familiarity with it, but you're by no means an expert, and you fail a little bit, but you're starting to grasp it. Zone 3, you know how to do it. You could do it with your eyes closed. You've done it many times. Yeah, you're kind of at a point where maybe not learning too many new things. Fitness industry spends a lot of time in Zone 3, maybe a little bit of time in Zone 2, very, very little in Zone 1. The approach says maybe we need to spend more time in Zone 1. I feel like play is a lot more about this Zone 1 idea. So we play as children, and then we at some point stop, right? We become adults. It's like, it's not cool to play anymore, right? It's what kids do. And then we just stop learning new patterns and new things. If you give a child a toy, the child does not read the instructions on how to play with the toy. The child just starts throwing, picking it up, all these different things, and learning on the spot, and by the experience in the moment. As adults, we're probably the ones that are reading the information, the manual on how to do this.
Right.
We have to just kind of get back to play. First thing is it will just lighten. Life is heavy. It just lightens it, right? When do you see adults in a room together playing a game with sticks or tennis balls? It's not often. And then again, they're going to be called the weirdos. Right? But it's fun. Like, maybe we should laugh and smile during an activity that involves us physically, right? Yeah, the dance, maybe. We see this, like we're happy, we're laughing and things. But yeah, the idea of play, I think, just comes back to, we just need to not be so rigid all the time, too, in our approach.
And science would definitely agree with you. Because this goes back to the concept of neuroplasticity. So the ability for the nervous system to adapt and to change and to actually, and the more and more neuro research coming out and showing that we've always thought that kids have a lot of neuroplasticity, but we're seeing this go further and further and further in our lives. And neuroplasticity is something that is persistent. It is something that is constantly there. And it is not just there for us to use, but it's also a very, very important concept for disease prevention. And so neuroplasticity, what does that mean? It's an ability for the nervous system to adapt and to learn new things in many different ways. Learning happens as a conceptual learning. It happens as a spatial learning, and it happens, in other words, your position in space and your interaction with another person, with the space itself, and also ability to execute. And all of those things are important, right? So that goes back to the play. The reason that that's important, it's one thing to say, okay, that's important, and we kind of see that it is, and maybe people are a little bit happier when they do these things, but why? Why are they happier, and what does it do for us? Because, look, life is serious, like you said. I mean, I have a lot of things on my plate, and play is for kids, and now I have to be serious, I have to take care of things. So the reason that the play is so important, and it goes back to some of the things you've mentioned that I wanted to get back to, you mentioned the word problems, right? How does one go about solving problems in the practice of movement? And that is a way for us to connect the mental aspect of this, of how do I see myself doing, then connect it to the physical aspect of this.
Yeah.
And the two major things that it does, and one of the main things, I mean, this is no secret why we are sitting here and talking, is because I sought you out specifically for myself, because I felt that this approach encompassed everything that I was looking for. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I was looking for, and we can, that can be a separate aspect of this conversation.
Sure.
But not to get off this topic, the play and the neuroplasticity. Number one, we know that Alzheimer's disease, any kind of neurodegenerative process,
Yeah.
has been shown that if we continue learning into our older years, it prevents it or staves it off, or just completely prevents it, or delays the onset, or slows the progression of all of these neurodegenerative processes.
Yeah.
And people have been advised to pick up ping pong, pick up dancing, as simple as take a different route going home, because it forces you to pay attention to the current moment. It
Sure.
forces you to rewire your autopilot, right? It shuts
Yeah.
off the autopilot. Take a toothbrush, brush your teeth with a different hand than you're usually doing. And that these simple things have been shown to really prevent these neurodegenerative diseases that are detrimental to our ability to be healthy in our years, because medicine has been good about extending our lives, but we are now at a point where we now have to extend the quality of that
Sure.
life, right? And that depends on a lot of different things. It
Yeah.
depends on our ability to interact with the environment. It depends, and interacting with the environment in many different ways, in a way that is meaningful, but also in a way that doesn't hurt us, right? So being able to get up from a floor, being able not to hit that floor quickly, in other words, fall. All of that is very, very important. And how do you get that? Well, you get that by creating a threshold, right? Creating a threshold of abilities, and also creating an ability to adapt. And with this goes to your point of solving those problems, because when we do stuff in class, and I say stuff to encompass all the things that we do, right?
Right.
It's play or specific movements or
Yeah.
locomotion,
Yeah.
right? Those
Yeah.
movement that flow one from another, where a lot of the times you usually say that, this is going to be a mentally taxing.
I love watching the faces. Yeah,
Right,
well, yeah,
right.
for sure.
It's a mental, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
sometimes.
First, before you even get to move, how do I do this? Where does this go and that goes? And that is important, right?
Yeah.
Because that creates that neuroplasticity, that engages the nervous system and the musculoskeletal system. So that's great. That's one, and that
Yeah.
goes to that problem solving that engages both the mental and the aspect of the physical body.
Yeah.
Most of the things that we do in class and that are done in movement culture engage movement, and they engage balance. And balance is tremendous. Balance is something that anyone and everyone can get benefit from in daily life.
Yeah.
Balance is something that is very, very challenging as we age, because balance is something that also degrades, and our ability to participate in life activities. Look, if we use a walker to get to the car and then get to places, that too is challenged, because our ability to drive a car is challenged by our balance and our spatial awareness of where things are. So if we think about our ability to interact with the world,
Yeah.
we need balance, and we need that spatial awareness. And the more threshold we build, regardless of what age we start at,
Yeah.
the more we're going to get to use, and the less degenerative changes are going to take away from our interaction with life. There's also one researcher and a podcaster, Peter Attia. He's a former surgeon, and he brings up this concept of how do we plan, and what are our goals. And you can have a number of different athletic goals. He brings up this Olympics at 100, right? And his concept is this. Well, if I'm thinking of what I'm going to be able to do at 100,
Sure.
well, let's be practical.
Yeah.
I'd like to play with my great-grandchildren.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And what does that entail? Well, that entails being able to pick up a child,
Yeah.
being able to sit down with them on the floor and then get up, and do these things, which we take for granted now.
100%. Yes.
But if we don't do something to be able to continue to do that we naturally start losing that, right? And so now we scale it back. Okay, so if at 100 that's what I want to do, what should I be able to do at 90, at
Right.
80, at 70, at 60, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And then it goes back to what you were saying, play,
Yeah.
and being able to to engage and being able to get up from a seated position,
Sure.
to squat,
Yeah.
to do all of those things. So let's say when someone comes to you, what is your method? What is your approach? How do you introduce someone to the movement culture?
Yeah.
How do you engage them? And how do you show them what this is about?
Yeah. So it all depends in the context too, right? So if I work with an individual client versus, like in the group environment as well, it does differ a little bit. So I'll have a very basic fundamental approach of usually we're starting in the squat position, right? So yeah, again, just getting back onto in that basic functional squat position that we all had at one point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it 100%, right? It's taken for granted, like that ability. And I have a lot of older clients, and you're right, they just want to play with their grandkids. That's their goal. And it's really challenging. And then how do I get up off of the ground, where it doesn't take, maybe a full minute and a set of props to do. It's this the basic things that they want to do in life. And then like you said, you've mentioned a lot of good things in there too. Yeah, it's just like balance too. So all these things. So I'll assess the individual, just kind of see like what the starting point is. But generally, like we're going to sit down in a squat and we're going to start a conversation and talk. If anywhere to start, it would be to try to get them to start to understand more of almost like having them start to research and just see if I can start to change their perspective on the way that they view it. I had a conversation just today at the gym with an individual. I guess, I don't know, he was asking me, it's funny, about my squat position. Mm-hmm. It just kind of came up and he was commenting and he got down into a squat and it was pretty good. And I said, yeah, okay, maybe try it next time. Spend a little longer. I even mentioned, we'll talk later maybe about the squat challenge. Mm-hmm. But for just that like quick conversation, yeah, that's, and sometimes two people are going to, it kind of like lead you in the direction that they want. Like, oh, I saw you do this, and that's where the conversation starts.
Right. Well, why not mention the squat challenge now?
The squat challenge.
Yeah. Go for it.
Something that IDO put out a while back, and 30 days, 30 minutes per day. The key word being to accumulate 30 minutes per day in a deep resting squat position. So resting squat, heels flat to the floor. No weight, right? Everybody at the gym puts the weight on their back. But what about just the very natural resting squat position first, where we were probably meant, to be in that position naturally. So accumulate 30 minutes per day for over the course of 30 days. You might notice changes you would never even think. So in addition to all the wonders it can do for the joints, even just digestion, it's basically looking at our body's ability to get compressed and to fold, which we really never do, right? We sit in these chairs and none of my joints are fully folded right now. And I'm just sitting in this, position. If I was in a squat position, it'd be a lot different experience. As far as like what's actually going on, a lot of good things. Blood's getting pushed out from joints, getting pushed back in. But this idea that joints love full range of motion. They want to explore full extension. They want to explore full flexion. Well, we don't experience that in life unless we are kind of in the squat position. So even just the basic squat, it was almost like, made for so many benefits of us. We put our children in schools, perhaps they start sitting in chairs and maybe we never look back and we never sit in that squat again. And then 10, 20, 30 years down the road, ankle, knee, low back issues. Well, maybe if we just did this natural squat, even again, as far as going to take it towards digestion, I feel like even too, just digestion can improve if people just start kind of sitting in that squat position.
And then
it was funny. I actually had no idea I was doing an evaluation. This was when I was a trainer I had no idea the person I was sitting across happened to be a proctologist. And I mentioned the squat position and he went into a full 5 minute about how it changes the shape, the color.
Absolutely,
it's the natural position, right?
Yes,
and we were made that.
And so this is the one of the inventions, the squatty potty, right?
Squatty potty. So you're starting to see. So maybe a little shift we're starting to see. I mentioned something earlier too of this first idea and concept a few years back of functional training, functional movement. We're seeing the squatty potty. So I think slowly, we're starting to catch on. I hear so many too athletes. Or even adults, I brought my son or daughter, they got big and strong, but they can't move. Right. At some point, we're going to realize, that strength, it doesn't help you always throw the baseball faster. It doesn't help you always, whatever it is, whatever the discipline is. We just need to sometimes, just move better quality.
And so mention on your point of full range of motion of the joint. And the reason that is very, very important is because what a lot of people don't realize and understand is that there is no true circulation as we think of it in the joint. Right? There's no blood vessel in the joint, and if you think about it, how could a blood vessel be in the joint, a weight-bearing joint like a knee or a hip? Can't be there is a blood vessel in the hip joint, but it travels differently. But let's say a knee, there is no blood vessel in there because it would get compressed, right? It's impossible to have circulation like we think of it, like blood going through there.
Right.
So how does a joint get circulation? Synovial fluid, the fluid within the joint, but there is no heart in there to push that joint around.
Interesting.
Right? So the movement itself is the lubrication, and it also moves that fluid throughout the joint so that it can envelop all the structures and all the surfaces, and then bring towards the surface or towards the capsule. And it's at that capsule where we get all those little blood vessels that now exchange all the waste and all the debris for the oxygen and so on. So that's circulation, if you will. And it's a bit of a stretch to call it circulation, but that movement, that equivalent of the circulation has to happen in the joint through the movement of the joint. And of course, the full range of motion is important. Most people with arthritis of the knee will attest to the fact that if they walk too much, it'll hurt, right? I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer. But they will also attest to the fact that in the morning, it hurts a lot and it's very stiff. Also, if they sit and watch a movie or go to a theater, it hurts a lot to move. Well, what is it? It's immobility, right? So they've been sitting for 2 hours, that joint hasn't been moving. The joints love that middle ground. They need the movement. Too much movement can be detrimental. And of course, our goal with this is to create as much of a threshold so that the too much movement happens so far out that we never reach it. And so that you can use the joint and you can move as much as you want, as you need, and you don't get that stiffness when you're not moving because you've been moving the joint through the whole range of motion.
So, and again, just like reiterating the importance of the joints, again, this is something that's very overlooked. And then you mentioned something interesting too, is like, and maybe this goes back to like, where do you start with a new person? The idea of dosage, how much too soon, right? Too much movement, no good. Too little movement, no good. We need to find where is that middle ground. Dosage is a enormous concept that we need to learn in the movement practice. There's a beautiful little quote. I heard it at a workshop somewhere. In nature, there are no poisons or anecdotes. There's only dosages. And it just makes so much sense. So you ask the question, is water good for you? And most people, water's good for me. Okay. I give you 7 gallons of water. I say, drink this water now. It's not so good for you anymore. So it depends. The proper dosage, Move too much too soon, recipe for disaster. Don't move at all, recipe for disaster. We need to slowly work with the body over time to create the adaptation process. Some adaptation processes happen quickly. There's if I give you a game, you might be better at the game by the 10th repetition you did. Try to get stronger in the matter of 5 seconds. Get stronger in a minute. No, that adaptation process is a longer process. So there's all these different processes in the body, and they need their time to. I feel like to properly, and I feel like this is where the movement perspective comes in, and it's saying, let's not rush too soon, too fast. Let's lay a good foundation, just of the human body first, and then boom, it becomes adaptable. We can start. Maybe balancing on our hands, but you can't balance on your hands if you're not used to putting your hand and bearing weight on it yet. Your wrist will not be able to take that joint. You won't isn't prepared or ready yet. So, first, bulletproofing the joints, getting the joints resilient. I think that actually is, if we're going back, we're talking about the squat. Well, that incorporates the joints. This is a good place to start with people, is just getting the joints prepared. We go to the gym, it's just about what's in between the joints. It's those muscles. Why would we ignore the joints? They're part of the body. They're in between all those muscles we're trying to work. They're really, really important.
That's great. And so I can't help but think about the some of the things that come together with this training, and this is why, once again, you're not around the corner from me, and I drive 45 to an hour.
I appreciate it so much.
To train with you, and there are so many different benefits to the movement, to the practice of movement, and one of the things you've mentioned is that attention to detail, right? And that attention to detail almost goes to the point of meditative state, right? You're here now and you are doing this particular task. It has that quality, and so it takes you out of the craziness of what we think about and everyday 100 to do items
Sure.
on the list. So there's a benefit to that.
Yeah.
Also, there is something that you said about the learning a new thing and also adapting and also play. All of that kind of comes together. There's a researcher in development and education, Carol Dweck, and she did research and talked about different mindsets, right? The mindset. The mindset differences of telling a child, or she studied children, so telling a child you're smart versus you did great, you put a lot of effort into it, and I'm proud of the fact that you put a lot of effort into it and you're able to get to this point. So in other words, growth mindset versus a mindset that's set. So there is value in getting into that growth mindset. In other words, there's value in the effort that you put into the task at hand, and that is going to produce results. And that goes to another concept of starting new things, being a beginner.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of concept, a lot of talk about that in martial arts, and a lot of talk about that in philosophy of coming up to certain things with a beginner's mind.
Sure.
Right, and just exploring and opening up, and that seems to be something that translates into other tasks at hand, because sometimes people find that even coming up to a problem at work, if you walk away from it and look at it from a fresh perspective, you can really attack that problem and all of a sudden see a solution that was in front of you the whole time, right? And so practicing the beginner's mind, if you will,
100%.
allows you to bring that back to your tasks in other things.
Yeah.
And that actually, I'll use this as a segue to ask you. So this is helpful for us in a daily activities. How does this impact other things that we may enjoy or do otherwise? I mean, we talked about I have more hobbies than there are hours in a day. So I can appreciate what it gives me for different hobbies, including martial arts and bicycle and motorcycle riding and so on and so forth. So what do you see this adding to people with other interests?
Yeah. So going back to the what you're talking about the beginner mindset. First of all, this is the mindset we want from everybody, right? We should always have this mindset. And how we go about. So I agree 100%. So if I'm learning new tasks, I feel like I'm going to get better at learning any new tasks. But people will disagree and say, well, there's no carryover between playing with the tennis ball versus, who knows, maybe climbing the tree. Maybe they're two new tasks, whatever it is. But how do I deal with the frustration of failing at that task? What do I do? That I'm going to learn from. So when I do the other task that doesn't look anything like this at all, well, I've learned. Sometimes frustration is one of the best things. You fail at something, you fail. Do you give up or do you get frustrated? Sometimes frustration is what we want. I remember a workshop, Ito said, frustration is like an X that marks the spot. It's where we want to be. That's where the good stuff is. Because what are we going to do? We're going to get frustrated. I've tried this 25 times. It's not working. I'm frustrated. I'm going to try a different method. I'm going to try a different approach because of this emotional state. I'm not going to walk away though, right? We can't walk away. We have to be in that emotional state and make it work for us. Maybe fighters with fear. We've used this emotional difference in our body to be better at the task that we're doing. So as far as the beginner mindset, I feel like we want this all the time.
Sorry to interrupt. With that frustration, there are so many different disciplines that will say the same thing in different ways, but they're still saying the same thing, as you said, that frustration, right?
Yeah.
So
I call it scrambled egg for brains. You hear me?
Yes,
that? Scrambled egg for brains sometimes. It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
So
you can
I
have
love
a
this
short circuit
because I wait. I watch the students and I wait. What's next? What's the reaction going to be? I'm going to see a reaction soon. They're not figuring it out. They're getting frustrated. Okay, they're looking at other students. What are they doing? I'm going to try to learn from them. Okay, that's one method.
Sure.
That's an approach.
Sure.
Try a different approach.
Right.
Maybe do something with more force even because of the frustration. Who knows what we're going to find? But it's these things we like to see. And then, okay, now what? How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that situation when you're frustrated, when it doesn't go well, when you fail? this is what we want to improve in and get better at, so that no matter what the thing is, we do.
Yeah, and in Stoicism, one of the philosophies that has become more and more popular recently, there's a concept, and there's even a book. Ryan Holiday, I believe, wrote the book called "Obstacle is the Way."
Beautiful.
It's not about getting around the obstacle, but when you see an obstacle, when you get that frustration, you know that's what you need to get through that, because that is the way. That is not something that stops you. That is something that you get around, and that's what I meant when I said that there are many different approaches to life and different concepts that will say the same thing, that will say the frustration, the obstacle, that there is value in getting friction, right? And then being able to find a way, the way out of it and through it.
If we get so comfortable, we don't come across the obstacles. We don't come across when the life becomes too mundane and too autopilot. That's a bad sign, right? We need the stimulus, we need the frustration, we need the different environment at times to challenge us. Yeah, because we're not stagnant. We're going to change constantly. But before I started the interview till now, I'm a different person, right? We've changed that much that fast.
Sure.
We're constantly changing. So this ability to, I love the adapt. I talk about adaptability all the time. It's happening 24/7 no matter what. You don't want it to happen, it's going to happen, period. So you better create the adaptations you want, not the ones that are going to lead to the things, the surgeries or the whatever it is down the road.
So to get us back to the specifics of the movement culture, which doesn't exist, right? I mean, I think we've established with the fact that there isn't a specific.
So if we were to give it a home, you can go on Facebook and find a movement culture group, and then you will probably see people following and studying what we call the IDO Portal Method. So if you were to ask Ido, it is the term IDO Portal Method, but if you were to ask Ido, I think he would say, it's just a culmination of things that he has kind of put together over the years that he finds work quite well with maybe progressing his individuals that he's worked with. So it's a very, very broad approach, but something in there for everybody, and something I feel like that everybody can take into other aspects of their life.
Yeah, it's similar to from the martial arts world. Bruce Lee. People know Bruce Lee, but besides being a movie action star, he actually developed this system of Jeet Kune Do, and it was sort of this can't get a grasp on, is it an actual martial art or is it just a concept? And his principle was adapt what is useful, and he was famous for saying this: adapt what is useful, discard what is useless, and add something that's uniquely your own.
This is it,
right? And so that this is somewhat similar to this, and that's why it permeates so many different things. And it looks at the attributes, and those attributes get developed, and those attributes permeate our lives on a daily basis, and then of course spring into different hobbies. And I can say that with confidence that since we've started working together, since the practice, it's been about 4 or 5 months at this point.
A few months.
That I think that I find myself balancing so much better on the bike. I find myself even when during the sailing season, even sailing and walking up and down the deck, being able to balance myself and being able to be aware, definitely a lot better, and feel more stable in an unstable framework.
Beautiful, yes.
Right? And that is the concept, right?
For sure.
We can be stable in a static form, but it is that constant movement, physical movement, that is unpredictable, and being able to catch yourself. And that brings us back to, okay, well, what if I don't sail? What if I don't do it? Don't do anything else? Well, right now outside, there's black ice out there. Right, and there are patches of black ice, and we're going to get surprised by different things, and we're going to turn around and walk and talk to someone, and we're going to turn, and there's going to be a branch in front of our eyes.
Sure.
How do you avoid that? How do you respond to the things that we encounter daily? Because I see patients that come in and they will describe these things, and they will say that this little patch of ice or that little branch, and I turned a certain way, and all of a sudden I have a whiplash injury.
And I think what you're describing is life is chaotic. It's chaos. We walk outside, the ice, the slip, the branch, all those things. Life is chaotic. We don't train for chaos. But in the movement perspective, we train for chaos because life is chaotic. Right. Yeah, what's the chaos when the machine does the same thing all the time? Or when we've done the thing for, 4 years in a row, it's the same the same exact lunge that we did 4 years ago. Where's
Right.
the chaos in that? And also, too, is this idea and concept of training out of alignment on purpose, because in life, we will go out of alignment. When? As soon as you step out of your car. As soon
Right.
as you walk out and step off the curb. You're going to go out of alignment. For me, hiking, try to hike in alignment. It's impossible. You take 4 steps, your knee has gone over where it's gone to the left, to the right, your foot has turned. Yeah, so that is maybe going back to the idea of fitness industry versus movement industry, preparing for chaos, preparing for actual life, not just in particular exact ranges of motion under particular environments, but like you said at the very beginning, I think is, or maybe we were talking prior, is just like, running on surfaces that are like the ground. This
Right,
is
right.
life. Life is out here. It's in here too. It's out there, but it's all the time, and it's chaos. So we want to prepare not just when I go to the yoga class, not just when I go to the fighting class, not just, I'm a mover 24/7, and I think that's a really important thing to note too. You were describing too, like just the balance on your bike. So some of this could be due to just strength. It could be just from balance, and just overall awareness of your body and moving through space
Sure.
on an object such as a bike too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great to hear like those things, to hear, that's a real life example. Okay, I like biking through the woods. Yeah, beautiful. How can the movement approach? Well, when I'm in a crawl position on the floor, it's a little different, but there's carryover.
Right.
And not only in the physical aspect, in the mental aspect as well. We were playing with some spatial awareness the other night,
Right.
and interacting with human beings, interacting with objects. I feel like this is more lifelike.
Sure.
Maybe prepares us better for life situations and life's chaos. Perhaps.
You mentioned squat, right? So
Yeah.
that's one very beneficial movement, or rather position, right?
Sure, yeah.
So you mentioned the squat challenge. If you were to give a couple of other examples of these overarching movements or positions that could be useful for people in daily life.
Yeah. So everybody's going to be different, right? So their starting point. But if we're going to talk about the average person, and if you wanted me, most people want one thing.
Of
right?
course.
What's
yes.
the one thing?
What's the
right?
silver bullet? Yeah.
Right. All the time.
Right.
Obviously, we don't know the answer. But if I had to give a starting point, and I'm not just saying this because you're the spine guy, but it would be to let's start moving our spines. We sleep at night, straight spine, we brush our teeth, sit at a chair, we eat our breakfast, perhaps we sit in the chair, we go to work, we sit in a chair, perhaps at work. Our spine has stayed straight all day long, hasn't moved. Then maybe we do go to the gym. And then if we have a trainer, what does our trainer tell us? Yeah, lift that weight with a straight spine.
Right.
We don't move our spine. We don't bend it. It bends all these different directions.
Right.
So I would say maybe as a starting point is start moving your spine. So what does that look like? Well, one of the videos too that I think people can see perhaps after the, if they read available,
absolutely,
is just, some basic what I call the spine drill, 6x6. So maybe that's just a good place to start. But just start, with the spine, getting it moving. In all the different directions, explore. Too many times people won't do that though because they feel like they need a trainer or a somebody to show them the right way. Okay, maybe it's certain things, but you're the owner of the body. We need to start taking some responsibility for this thing that we have on our own. We need to become our own teachers to some degree. So a mirror, do you have a mirror? Go in front of the mirror and start seeing what shapes can you make with your torso. Can you bend this way? Can you fold? Can you go backwards? Does it hurt if you go backwards? Can you go left? Can you go right? Start maybe with moving the spine. The squat, maybe that's even the second place to go then after the moving of the spine.
Cool.
Maybe we start with
I'm
the
going to
squat.
apologize. I'm going to interrupt you for a second.
For
I
sure,
just want to mention something because of the spine, right?
Yeah.
So, and I promise I'll get you back onto the track of the specific things that you can that someone can start with and benefit from. The spine, and this is something that I discuss with my patients a lot as well.
Yeah.
Let's say someone comes in and they come in with an injury, post-injury, and I need to diagnose. I need to take care of the pain, let's say, and inflammation, and so on and so forth. And I can be good at putting the inflammation out, and I can take that pain away. But what if even that is not necessary? Because I do see patients sometimes that they will injure themselves and they will come back, and by the time I see them, they're better. They're essentially back to baseline. They're moving fine. They're okay. They were 7 out of 10 pain a week ago, but now they're fine.
Yeah.
Great, right? I mean, just be done. Go on with your life.
Yeah.
No, that's a terrible way to go. And so my conversation usually revolves around, look, you've injured your spine. Granted, you've recovered as you should have. A lot of the times, majority of the small injuries to the spine, sprains, strains of the muscle will resolve within, say, 1 to 2 weeks. Normally, spontaneously, if you will. Our bodies are trying to take care of ourselves all the
Sure.
time. But what happens is, number one, we don't heed the alarm of this, this
100%.
a call to action, if you will.
Yes.
Well, there is a reason why we hurt ourselves. So how can we prevent it? But also there are consequences to small injuries. The body reacts by creating what's called physiologic splinting, and what that is each segment, each vertebrae, is responsible for its own motion. That motion happens on a microscopic level. It is moved by small muscles, and together these vertebrae will create the gross motion that we see, the bending, the side bending, etc.
Yeah.
When there is an injury, the body, for lack of a better explanation, gets scared and it tenses up. It doesn't just do that, but it also responds by tightening up. If you take Boy Scouts and you say, well, what do you do if someone broke their leg or twisted their knee?
Right.
Take 2 boards,
Yeah, splint, yeah.
splint them,
Sure.
right? Our bodies do the same thing.
Yeah.
The muscles become the splints. They become hardened, and they prevent motion as a preventative,
Sure.
as a way to prevent increasing the pain or increasing irritation, and that should resolve when that irritation is gone. Sometimes it doesn't, especially when it goes back to what you were saying of how we spend our days sitting behind a computer, sitting
Sure.
in a linear motion. So there is no engagement to that spine. So what happens a lot of times is that person who now feels fine, the segment or 2 segments are no longer moving individually.
Locked
Now
down,
they're
huh?
still locked in.
Yeah.
So this is a recipe for another injury.
Sure.
Right, to adjacent segments, and so on and so forth, and this is a snowball effect.
Yeah.
So we have a conversation about, okay, this is great that you're feeling great right now, but let's use this. Right, you're here for a reason. You had pain. Let's not just be okay with status quo. Let's prevent these injuries again.
Yeah.
Let's train, and that goes back to what you were saying, that movement of the spine, which, by the way, that section I really love, because yes, that goes right to the core of what I usually talk to people about, which is one of the reasons that I sought out this type of practice. I almost said training again. So sorry. So you were saying the spine movement, then you said squat. So go ahead.
But so going on a few things that you mentioned there too, right? It's like we don't realize how important the spine is until we hurt the spine. We don't realize how important my wrist is until I hurt my wrist.
Sure.
Then it's like, oh, okay, I need to address that area. And it's interesting the effect, the smallest little thing, the tip of the finger, how it affects the whole entire system. So yeah, moving mobility, right? Moving the spine around. It gets neglected. So where to start? Yeah, just start by moving the spine in as many areas. And then you're saying, how it like tightens and locks down. So if we keep it moving, right? So we get the injury, we feel better, and then boom, okay, I'm back to normal life. No. You're right. It's a call for action. It's the conversation the body's trying to have with us that we've been ignoring to have. And then it's like pain is like it's a little louder. Okay, I'm shouting the conversation now. I'm in pain.
Right.
You have to listen to me. I'm forcing you to address this issue. Yeah. So we start to I feel like the more with the movement approach, the awareness of the body.Maybe I can feel that starting to happen because I've been moving it before it happens.
Right, yeah.
Maybe I feel the little bit and then I move it and I work it out. I always, even from the being a yoga teacher as well, I always say, look, you go with the trip to New York, it's 6 hours in the car both ways. You better move your spine when you get out of the car or else you're going to be having issues for sure. The spine is a beautiful, I think, place to start. And it's responsible for so many shapes of the body. What other one joint is, look at how fluid it moves. So maybe perhaps why that's the starting point.
Okay.
And then moving further, you were talking about...
Well, you said we were talking about some of the overarching things that people can work on.
Yeah.
We mentioned squat. You mentioned spine mobility.
Sure. So and we could go a few places, right? So it could be just working up perhaps on balance. Another thing that's quite popular, I would say, in the movement culture, the movement world, is hanging work, right? So... most of it, even if we're laying down in a car, sitting, wherever we are, the body's length pretty much stays the same, right? But when we sit in that squat position, there is some compression going on, and there is some elongating going on in the hang position as well. IDO's referred to hanging work as nature's chiropractor. Much slower.
Right.
It's going to work slow. But if you imagine what's going on literally inside the body, because of this natural thing that we have is gravity, right? It's inside, everything is slow. It's a slow process, but everything is being pulled down at the same equal amount as we hang. Though it does wonders for shoulder stability, shoulder issues, so many different things that can go on just in this entire region. But in addition to just this, again, idea of my body's elongating. And whenever it goes into these positions, I'm going to elongate a little bit. So maybe even just hanging work. Me being like in the yoga world too, a lot of yogis that have shoulder issues due to instabilities in the shoulder. This is really, really common. So yeah, strengthening the scapula and through perhaps just, through some hanging work. You go to the gym, everybody's doing pull-ups. It's rare somebody does sets of hanging.
Right.
So
right.
another, that 30, building on the 30-day squat challenge, IDO also had put out a 7-minute hanging challenge accumulated. So 7 minutes per day over the course of, for the 30 days, see if you can accumulate to 7 minutes of hanging work.
Which means 2 minutes here, 3 minutes there.
Accumulated.
If you can do all 7, great.
For sure, yeah. But you're going to notice too, right, the grip strength.
Sure,
so again, other little benefits that will come from it too, like just getting better grip strength. And then again, even just maybe you could shed more light, but alleviating compression in the spine. Again, it's this idea, I think in chiropractic, traction machines now. So this is kind of like a little bit faster approach to maybe what I'm talking about, but we're similar things. So maybe hanging.
I mean, definitely there are benefits in physical therapy. There's traction. There are traction machines and traction that helps separate, that helps decompress, if you will.
Sure.
There are teeter-totter, those flip tables where you lock in your legs and you flip over
upside down. Sure.
So absolutely. A lot of the times when people ask me about those, I have no problem with them. There are certain precautions to be taken. A lot of it depends on your ability to focus on lengthening and ability to relax those muscles, because they are working against gravity. And it's almost like getting that fear out of the body. It's okay to just hang.
For sure.
So there's an element of that as well.
Yeah, and hopefully maybe this happens over time too, right? Because that fear factor, of when we start doing anything, the body's, I'm not used to this, I don't know. And contraction, right? Probably without even knowing it.
Sure.
So the ability just even to be able to relax, in that hang position.
So a lot of the things you're saying, and you kept going back to the same thing. It depends, right? Because everyone is an individual. There are different concepts to talk about. There is no cookie cutter approach, right? Everyone's different. Everyone will have their weaker link, if you will, in that chain. And some will have stronger. And what people tend to do is they keep on working on the stronger because that feels good and avoid the weaker link.
Nobody likes to fail.
Right, exactly. So, so if it was you, how would you go about looking for a studio, a movement teacher, or how would you do it?
Yeah, good question. So I would say one, perhaps somebody that talks the talk and walks the walk, right?
Fair enough,
You showed me somebody that did a 4-year dissertation on how to do a handstand versus somebody that can do a handstand. I'm probably going to listen to the person that can do the handstand, right? So I want to see the knowledge, but also, can you do it? And somebody that has taught themselves, right? At a young age, maybe we learn gymnastics and then we're just blessed throughout the rest of life. But somebody that maybe did not have those skills, if we're talking about like trying to find like maybe a good teacher, somebody that doesn't have the skills but went through processes to gain those skills over time too.
Why is that important?
Because these are the same processes that I know I'm going to need to move through. So I'm going to want to look for people that have gone through those same approaches, that have felt what I felt in my early stages.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great point. And I think that's so important to be able to have, because a lot of times we get beyond a certain point that we forget what it's like to be a beginner.
100%. Right? And, I even have to check myself a lot of times. There are certain, if we just look back at just certain individual movements that I was trying to learn early on, some of them came really easy to me because of my past background in whatever it was, right? And I have to understand that, maybe this person does not have that past background. I went through these stages that they're going through, but they're experiencing it different than I was. I need to look at, like, no cookie cutter approach. I need to look at this body, see what's going on, and address it accordingly. And that comes through experience. I just feel like you need time, you need experience. You need to teach many different people different approaches to get them maybe perhaps to the same goal. So what do we look for, when you walk into perhaps, so a movement studio is going to, it's going to look different than the LA Fitness or the whatever the gym is, right? It just appears different. Not high-tech gadgets, right? I have a rig. You'll see some gymnastic rings hanging, some dowels in the corner, maybe a foam roller, maybe a mat, some few weights, maybe a kettlebell, tennis balls. Not too much more,
a lot of open space.
Open space, to move. Open space to move, and then things to hang from, and just overhead, getting arms even overhead too with the hanging work to go back. But a teacher that is going to be focused on attention to detail, I feel like is important from the teacher. And has a vested interest in you too, though. So it goes beyond just like, look, there's pay involved, right? But beyond that, no, hopefully the teacher became a teacher because they ultimately want to help you, or they want you to discover something about your body. That's what, at the end of the night, that's what drives me. When I hear somebody say, so I had a gentleman, there's this particular move I was teaching in the yoga classes. It's a way to get up off of the ground. Nice and smoothly, right? It's just a nice little approach. The individual said to me, Dave, I got up off the ground that way that we do it in yoga when I was at my house. I don't know, maybe I was on the ground with my grandkids or watching TV. Boom, light bulb goes off. Beautiful. You took it outside. It's not the thing we do in yoga. It's the thing we do in life. So somebody that cares about your quality of life beyond just your performance maybe in that room, I think is important. But just, you're going to want to trust your teacher. And you're also going to want a teacher that's going to challenge you and try to squeeze the sponge, so to speak. So the teacher should be squeezing everything out of the students. The students should be squeezing everything out of the teacher. This should be a two-way street. And too, I talk about like this idea and role of being a teacher. In the movement classes, you are forced at times to be the teacher, right? And you're going to interact and you're going to try to challenge. So many times we go into a discipline and environment, and it's like, that's the teacher, I'm the student, I'm going to learn, and the information is going to come one way. Nope, no. I'm learning every moment of the classes from watching my students, and I hope the students are learning from other students and learning from the teacher that was the other student right next to them. Now, hey, I'm asking you to be a teacher role. You're going to have to interact with that individual. You're going to have to do a pretty good job. So I talk about how to be a pretty good teacher too, just on a very light level, but during that class experience, because you're going to have to challenge other people. You're going to play the role of the teacher. Just going back to like your original question, these movement studios, they're starting to pop up. So IDO's kind of getting a little more popular. Sure. People are going to these movement camps. He has a movement camp once a year in Thailand. He has a lot of other smaller workshops, and he does another big European one as well. But these are like the bigger camps. And now I'm starting to see like the individuals that I've seen including myself at Thailand. We see each other year to year after year. They're starting to be the ones now going to wherever they live, the United States, other countries, opening up these movement studios. So it's starting, but it's at a very, very basic level right now. Right. And you know what? Maybe it sounds like initially in the beginning I was saying like that we don't want to necessarily specialize, but maybe you do go take a fighting class instead. Maybe you go take the discipline of yoga. Maybe you start with an individual discipline. Instead of maybe, if that's the alternative to just going to the gym and to the fitness world. Maybe you learn a little bit of, BJJ, like we had talked about, a little bit of like a fighting or martial arts, whatever it is.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And
yes, for sure, I think, but just you want to trust the teacher. Right. And hopefully you can notice when they're BSing you, Right. Hopefully. Yeah. But not always, so time, time too is another thing. Right. A teacher that can stand the test of time with you. Sure. And continue to progress you over time. Right. And a lot of times it's the student's fault too. Sometimes the student doesn't give the activity long enough to develop the skill. I failed at this 4 times. It took me 5 minutes. I'm done with it. You never gave that drill the time to get the benefits. Right. Maybe we never even give the teacher the time to give us really the benefits too. Maybe we check out too soon. Right. So both perspective, the teacher and the student perspective too.
Are there any misconceptions
Yes.
about movement culture?
Well, I think because it's so new, most things are misconceptions. I can describe the misconceptions that I've noticed having opened up a small business where I'm teaching the movement thing. I feel like if I were to say number one is they think it is just what they see. And too many times out there, I feel like what people see is the locomotion work or the floor work. They'll go to one class. Maybe we'll do a locomotion routine for an hour or so. They'll leave and they'll declare, I know what movement is. It's when you move around on the floor like a lizard or something, right?
Right.
And then they put it in the box. No, the box of movement is the all-encompassing box where we put all the different things in there into one big encompassing box. So misconceptions. It's so difficult to see the totality of it unless you're willing to commit the time. You're not going to learn what movement is after one class. You're not going to learn what it is after a month of classes. 6 months, you'll start to have some understanding of, oh, okay, I'm starting to see this for all of what it is. It's just so much to uncover, to unravel. Like it's been, 5, 6 months? I have 5, 6 more months of things you haven't seen yet at all. So it's broad. It's broad.
So the box of movement is lack of the box.
Yes. Yeah, it's the lack of one box. Yeah.
Right.
But it's so much, we humans, we want to put things in boxes. We want to give them labels and names and in a box so that it's easy to work with. It's not that easy. It's gray. I think one time, to get too far out there, IDO mentioned movement is like a cloud. You think you see it, boom, it disappears. It's that, maybe almost borderline, I don't know, maybe not mysterious, but it
ever elusive, yes.
It's changing. It changes as we change, yeah. So, yeah, as far as the movement approach, movement perspective, I don't think people understand too. It's like, okay, I spend all that time moving. We want to try to bring everything in balance. If I do a push, I want to do a pull. If I move, well, I want to bring my whole entire movement practice into balance. I need to practice stillness. Right. The practice of stillness, oh, you're sitting still, that's not movement. No, it's movement.
Right.
In stillness, we're moving. Everything's moving constantly in our bodies. Right now, we're having this conversation. The cells are moving. Things are moving in and out constantly. I'm moving around in my chair back and forth. These are like the natural way my body wants to move at this time. I'm moving.
Right.
So it's happening, regardless of if we're even aware of it. The practice of stillness, and then we'll put it in the box of meditation. Okay, you can call it what you want. But what if we're just, we're bringing the balance of moving into stillness, and then we want to focus on the mind too. Maybe people misconception, the mental aspect, how important it is. 100% full on engage. We want you.
Right.
Yeah, no point. We don't want to give you opportunities to check out per se.
Right.
So let me think other misconceptions perhaps of movement. I think the biggest thing is just that it's what I saw on day one. Oh, we played a game with a dowel. All right, that's a movement game. All right, it's a little bit. I describe it as you take a big and enormous wall and you scratch it and maybe a little bit of sheetrock comes off. That's what one class is like. The wall is the movement perspective.
Sure.
Yeah, so not giving it enough time to see the totality and labeling it the one thing that you did that one session or the one thing that fits well into a 60-second Instagram video and declaring that you understand what movement is. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah, absolutely.
It's a challenge, and as a business owner, it's hard to get, people to see the big picture. So this is the challenges that I'm against, but I'm up. I'm full on
up for the challenge.
Let's keep it going. So
I think we covered a lot of ground here. I think we talked a lot about the benefits and what it is and what it isn't. If you were to leave our viewers and listeners with one takeaway from this conversation, or just in general about movement, what would that be?
So I think it would be to shift the way they think about moving their body throughout life, and to stop thinking it is the thing that I do when I work out at the gym for the hour. And then the other 23 hours of the day, what am I then? Well, you're a mover. You're still, you have this body. If one thing is to change the paradigm shift of it's not the thing I do when I'm just in that class for the hour. No, it's a 24/7 thing. And we talked about this also I have a quote on the wall, right? And I think the quote maybe perhaps would even shed some light on this answer. The quote is that, first, you're a human being. Second, you're a mover. And this is Ido's quote. Only third are you a specialist. So at the top of the chain, it's like almost like a hierarchy, like a concept of how to view you. First, you're a human being. So if you don't have that down, if you're a bad person, if you're mean to everybody on a daily basis for no reason, that's number one. Let's start here. Let's get you to just just figure out just being a better human being first. Okay. Then second, I'm a mover. I move throughout life, right? It's only third that I want to identify as the dentist, the accountant, the fighter. It's only third that we are that specialist. So if we go up, one link on the ladder here, I'm a general mover first, because then that allows me to still be the mover when I walk outside after the yoga class, after the dance class. So I feel like it's that paradigm shift. It's that understanding, and it starts there. It's the seed that starts. You mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned this, did from me, the brushing the teeth with the left hand? Right. Was that, I've asked my students to do that. Did I ask you?
No.
That wasn't. Okay.
No, that's something that comes from recommending for patients that may, if you want to stave off Alzheimer's or any kind of neurodegenerative disease, you rewire, take off the autopilot.
Yeah. So this is one of the challenges that I had asked for the students. Start brushing with teeth with your left hand. And I would say, become aware of the adaptation process. How are you on day 1? How are you on day 3? What's day 6 looking like? So I did this, and the toothpaste was all over the face on day 1. I've gotten to the point, I've gone through back and forth, like left hand. I'm normally right-handed. And then it was funny, I even found that everything I did in the toothbrushing ritual was the same too, like with my normal hand. So even though I tried to switch to my left hand, when I would go to do the water and turn on, that was done with, I would switch for that process. So I tried to relearn the entire process. But this is an example of something that I've done. That's funny that you mentioned that. I thought I had you do that, but no, this is separate. So this is good that we're thinking along the same terms.
Absolutely.
But this idea of adaptability. So that's a great thing. That's where someone could start, right? Maybe tonight, left hand. How long does it take you to learn that? How long does it take you to adapt? So where it's comfortable with your left hand, do you get to the point where you don't even remember what hand you were the most comfortable with initially? So I've done, just personally, I've done this, and then I'll leave it and I'll come back to it. And now it's to the point where, maybe I first started doing this task maybe a year and a half ago. Now, if I leave it for 6 months and I go back, it feels natural now, even when I'm with my left hand, brushing my teeth. So, so maybe it just starts there. Maybe, what tasks can I find in my daily life that challenge me a little bit? Whether it's my mental aspect, maybe it's the very simple motor skill of brushing the teeth, or maybe it's something much bigger. Are we finding a mundane life where we're moving through with all the same repetitive movements all over all the time? Can I break out of those habits? Can I challenge myself in new ways? And so maybe if we're leaving people with one thing, is try to find the challenges out there in life. So this is going to sound silly, but it again is a fun an example, right? We talk a lot too in the movement world just about reaction time. So where does this come into play? Maybe, and even as me, the teacher, asking people to, improve your reaction, and they'll say, well, why? Okay, I don't know. But I'm driving somewhere. I have something, this has happened. This was like a little light bulb went off. I had something on the side of me, and it's a combination, of reaction time and peripheral vision of what happened. I was driving. I had to stop short because the car in front of me, and the thing, whatever it was, I don't remember, maybe Tupperware, a little, I don't know, something I had, it was going to fall over. And immediately, it was a combination of reaction time, my peripheral vision, boom, I stopped it. Not, it just boom, and it didn't, whatever it was, it didn't fall.
Right.
So
but there's also the reaction time of being able to stop the car and see what's going on
in
around
addition
there too.
Right. So a lot of things going on at once. So this maybe idea of life is chaotic. But maybe the tennis ball drill at the movement center where I went, maybe that prepared me for this little thing. Now, maybe that wasn't important, but maybe someday what was on that seat, maybe that was really important. And maybe it's catching a person, who knows? I mean, maybe we're catching. So to learn that it's in every aspect of our life. I could have viewed that and said, and just, it fell. Oh, my bad. Or I could have said, that was an opportunity for me to react in the moment and save something. It's silly, but this is life. Like
Sure.
it's
No,
going to be
absolutely.
something else down the road, more important perhaps.
Right.
But yeah, I got to find like it has to permeate my life. It has to be a part of the life function. So hopefully that even little fun example though.
Sure.
It's just
No,
like an
absolutely.
eye-opening thing. Yeah.
Yep.
And then even too, it's just like another fun example. I remember a few years back in ShopRite looking at a label, and I said something. I was looking at the label, reading the ingredients because I'm very particular of what I kind of allow, put into my body. And in the middle of ShopRite, the middle aisle, I looked and I said, something feels different about this. I didn't know what it was. And I said, oh my God, I'm standing up really tall. I'm really straight. I feel so I feel like my posture has improved so much. And it dawned on me in the middle of an aisle at ShopRite, right? But I know it was because of the movement practice. And I know it was just because of just training my body to just be, just better functioning, better posture in life. And I noticed that in the most obscure of places.
Sure.
Awareness. Maybe the answer is awareness then. Becoming aware of, oh, okay, this is how it could benefit. This is why I need it.
Sure.
This is where I could improve to become a better human being, right? So it's that hierarchy. Because ultimately, I want to be the best human experience, the best human being that we can be while we're here.
Sounds good.
And if I go to the gym,
Right.
maybe I'm cut a little short. Maybe I need more. I need more out of my practice. I need a practice that incorporates the totality of life rather than just getting bigger looking in the mirror or getting bigger muscles. You know what I mean?
Right. Sure. No, I get that.
This is maybe where I want to leave people, right? With that idea.
Yes. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And this is obviously there are so many different things to discuss about this, and we can go on for on and on and on. But I think this is a good place to wrap up. Yeah. And also, I want to thank you. Well, for several things. Thank you for coming, and also thank you for opening the studio and making this practice available. And I'm still going to hope that you're going to open up another one somewhere closer, because right now it is a 45-minute drive, but it's worth it. It's worth the drive.
I'm so impressed with my students that come. You're coming from 45. I have 2 or 3 other students coming from 45. I have
from a different direction. I know,
just from an hour and 10 now too coming. Okay. I feel so, you have no idea like how honored I am. And that's why, when you walk in the door, I say to myself, this individual came 45 minutes to let's 100% involve. Let's do this. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
And also, thank you for recording the videos that we're going to have at the end of this recording. So for those, for the listeners, find the YouTube version of this podcast. For the viewers, find stay tuned really, because at the end of this podcast, there's going to be a video that will comprise a couple of examples that you've recorded to really show what is it that you're talking about when you talk about squat and a couple of other exercises. So thank you for that as well. Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you again. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Zinovy. Thank you so much.
And to our viewers and listeners, thank you for tuning in.
So I wanted to show you a variety of balancing drills that I find very effective to get people not only to improve balance, but perhaps they're even just trying to strengthen the feet, the ankles, the knees, whether that's for an athlete, if it's maybe even post some type of surgery or anything like that. This balance drill in particular, I call the toe tap drill. I definitely would recommend getting them comfortable first, just balancing on one leg, but after that, this is a really nice progression. So they're trying to tap the floor to 4 different spots all around their body while maintaining their balance the whole time. And then as they progress, they're trying to reach a little bit further and further with that foot and bend that knee a little bit more and more as they progress. This is another nice little progression that I like to kind of promote, where we're tossing a ball back and forth while asking the individual to balance again on one foot. After they kind of get some success here, then you can start to kind of challenge the direction of where you're tossing the ball. You can call out, right hand, left hand, anything like that. And then another fun one is to kind of put your hand out and then ask for one of their body parts to tap your hand. So right there, I just said right foot. And you can take them through, a variety. You can go with left hand, right hand. You can have them tap the elbows. Here I'm going to do the forehead. So it's just kind of a fun approach and a little bit different approach, outside the box a little bit, to get them working on balance, but again, also strengthening all the, little stabilizer muscles as well. So yeah, really effective for balancing work. And again, it's just a different approach than just another regular drill. So I feel like the resting squat position is a good place to start when we're talking about the movement approach, something that's very human to all of us, right? All children are able to squat, but by the time we become adults, many of us lose this ability to sit in a heels flat squat to the floor. So a lot of times clients initially, when they'll try to sit into a squat, they will not be able to get the heels all the way flat, whether that's from hips or ankle mobility. A nice little regression is you can have them maybe put their heels up onto a wedge, or you can even use books at home so that when they sit into the squat, they'll be able to hold this position a bit more comfortably over time. And I would say definitely get the client comfortable there first with the basic resting squat position. And then they can progress into something like I'm showing you here, where we start to kind of have the forearm being used to push out the knee, and so that the inner thighs start to get a nice little stretch as well. And notice that I'm trying to do my best to keep so here it would be the left foot as flat to the floor as I can, as the left knee gets pushed away, getting a nice stretch here on the adductors, the inner thighs, and starting the process of really opening up the hips. Another nice progression that you can start to move your clients through after they're getting more comfortable with the squat position is starting to really move now within that squat. So this is the internal rotation of the hips here in our squat position. Definitely, again, try to progress the person towards this over time, but really does wonders for the joints of the feet, the ankles, the knees, and in the hips. But definitely move with precaution, particularly on the knees. And then another nice little movement that you can add to the squat position after they again get more comfortable in the squat is to start to rotate up here towards the ceiling, again opening up the chest, and notice the left arm here is being used so that the left knee does not cave in. There is a nice little challenge that IDO put out quite a while ago called the 30-day squat challenge, where you're trying to accumulate 30 minutes a day, the key word being accumulate 30 minutes a day in the resting squat position for 30 straight days. So that could be a minute in that squat position 30 times throughout the day. If you can hold it a little bit longer, maybe you're doing 30 seconds about 60 times a day to accumulate that 30 minutes, but it's a really good starting point. And then again, a more advanced squat, once they get comfortable with all those things over time, I call this the ankle squat. Have to be mindful of the knees, but a big stretch here for the tops of the feet, the ankles, and it just shows a good amount of, again, mobility in both the ankles, the hips, and then good strength in the knees as well. So again, something that would be progressed over time slowly to get the individual to work towards. And I would say the key with this squat routine that I brought you through is to apply the proper dosage to clients. So not to do too much too soon, but rather to progress them slowly. And if you notice in this routine here, so now I'm using my hands on the floor to kind of support a little bit of my body weight, so it makes it a little bit easier on the joints. So again, another nice regression that you can throw in there as well. So during the podcast, we did talk about the importance of the spine. And I did mention how this is a great place for new people to kind of start. So if you've been very, very inactive for quite some time, you want to get back into things, perhaps just moving the spine as much as you can throughout the day. This position here is called tabletop position. I was just demonstrating what is called cat-cows. So a great place for all individuals to start. Looking up to the ceiling, pressing the belly button down towards the floor, then tucking the chin and trying to round the upper back as much as we can. So we're getting the spine moving as much as the client can, and then over time they will be able to hopefully improve the mobility and the amount of movement and range of motion of the spine. And I like to take this cat-cow drill a step further and add what I call our rotations of the spine. So now you see me here adding the left and right element into it as well. So we kind of start to make this circle shape here with the entire trunk, torso, and the spine as well. Also, perhaps worth mentioning here, nice little cue you can give is kind of just push a finger into kind of the area of the spine that you're trying to get it to move into, and just kind of say, press into my finger, and that will kind of give some feedback for the client that you're working with. Progressing from the floor now to standing, another really, really great drill. I call this the spine drill 6x6. So we're going to try to have the spine move in 6 different directions. So first we forward fold, and the goal and the mindset is to round one vertebrae as best as you can at a time. trying to have each individual vertebrae articulate individually. So we just did our forward fold. Now we'll allow the head to drop back as we try to think about lifting everything up towards the ceiling, finding length in the spine, not just collapsing into lower back, so trying to lift up and back and just going to wherever the client is comfortable in their range of motion. After forward folding and bringing the back into extension, we'll now look at strict side flexion. So we're trying to have the individual, again, lengthen up first and then try to go up and over. I kind of give the cues like you're reaching over top of a barrel so that the client's chest will remain perfectly square to the front of the room. Often helpful to have them do this in front of a mirror perhaps as well. And then trying to use the muscles of the obliques and the abdominals to kind of pull yourself back up. And then after our side flexion, we'll just kind of rotate as much as we can to the left and to the right. And I encourage the individuals to rotate with every aspect of their body, but just, in particularly just focusing on the upper body, trying to rotate the spine again as much as possible. And I would say this drill in particular is a great way for anybody to start off their morning. This brings us into the weirdo drill, so the spinal waves. Do this one in the gym, and I think you'll probably get a few interesting looks. But now we're trying to add a little bit more dynamic into just moving the spine in a gross manner, but trying to have a little bit more control and accuracy in how we move and when we move the spine through space.